Thank you. So the Gemara, if you recall, at the beginning of Perek Shmini, Ayin Gimel Beis asked the following question: Asur, Anush Karisu. Why does the Mishnah use the word Asur when you talk about Achil and Chesiya? That generates a Chiyuv Kares. And the Gemara suggested that the Mishnah was dealing with the case of a Chatzi Shir. He didn't eat a full Koseves, or he didn't drink a full Mole Lugmov of a liquid, and he would not incur a Chiyuv Kares. He's only in violation of a law. And the Gemara says that reflects the Shita of Rabbi Yochanan, who holds that Chatzi Shir Asur Min HaTorah does not sit well with Reish Lakish, who holds that Chatzi Shir Mutar Min HaTorah, because the word Asur here is indicative of an Issa Doraisa. The Gemara says, but wait a minute, maybe Reish Lakish would admit that although the Torah never prohibited Chatzi Shir, but the Rabbanan prohibited Chatzi Shir, maybe the word Asur can be interpreted in the same way that Rabbi Yirmi interpreted as Chatzi Shir, but according to Reish Lakish, it means Chatzi Shir Asur Min Rabbanan. And what we got up to yesterday was the discussion about Shvuah, and we're going to discuss the case of Karban Shvuah. We're going to try to prove that according to Reish Lakish, there is no Isur D'Rabbanan in Chatzi Shir, which I find a very uncomfortable position. I mean, the Rabbanan will allow a person to take an avela, cut it into half. It's got a kizayis. He's going to eat a half a kizayis. He's going to make a brach on it and bench on it. I mean, like, it's like wild, you know. And all he has to do, if he doesn't cut it properly, if he eats the other half of the zayis, he's going to be chayv malchus. And now we're allowing him to eat chatzi shir. I find that appalling. But what did the Gemara find in Masechet Shavuos to prove conclusively that according to Reish Lakish, chatzi shir is mutar legamri, even lechatchila, and there's no Isur D'Rabbanan? So the case is where Aloma Tanan Shvushalo Ochal V'Yochal Nevelos Trefus. What happens? A man takes a shvuah and he says he won't eat anything. And then he goes ahead and he eats the veil shrefish kotzer muscle. We have a principle of ein shvuah chal al shvuah. So, for example, if I take a shvuah that I won't eat meat, I can't take another shvuah on top of that I won't eat meat. And we have a principle of mushba v'yomim yar Sinai, that at our Sinai we all, each and every one of us, took a shvuah, and in this case the shvuah is I won't eat nevelis treifish kotzer mosim. How can he now take a shvuah? And yet the Mishnah says in Masechet Shavuos that if he goes ahead and he eats all these machalos asur, any of these machalos asuros, he is chayav for violating his shvuah. What's going on? Mushba b'yomid, ein shvuah chal shvuah. Rabbi Shimon Poter. Rabbi Shimon I understand very well because ein shvuah chal shvuah. But I don't understand. That's Avina. But I mean, we asked the question. This is Shavuos Tav Chav Gimel. According to the Tanakama, my chayiv, why would he be chayiv a korban for this? Although mushba v'yomim ar Sinayu. Now, we could say, possibly, that mushba v'yomim ar Sinai only applies to a full shear, and he ate a half a shear. So when he took a shvuah, he took a shvuah that he won't eat anything at all. And he did not set a minimum volume. Therefore, if he eats a minimum volume of, let's call it nevela treifish kotzer masim, then he could be chayav for that. So if we accept Reish Lakish, there's no mushba v'yomim ar Sinai on a chatzi shir. Then when he took the shvuah, and now that shvua includes even a chatzi shir, a half the zayis worth of nevela, then the shvua could be chal because he wasn't mushba b'yomim ha'sinai on a chatzi shir. Again, that's not going to work for Rabbi Yochanan because Rabbi Yochanan holds that the Torah itself prohibited chatzi shir, and there's mushba b'yomim ha'sinai even on chatzi shir. Is Amai Chayiv mushba b'yomim ha'sinai Rav Shmuel Rabbi Yochanan the Amri? They all agree. Bik kolel dvarma mutarim dvarma surim. He took a shvua that he won't eat any meat, whether it's geshachtin or it's nevela. And in such a case, although he's mushba v'yomed on the nevela, we have a din called Iser Kolel, that if you create an Iser that has a broader scope than the original Iser, the second Iser is chal on top of the first Iser. So when he took a shvua that he won't eat at all, neither basar nevela nor basar shkuta, it's a kolel, and therefore it's chal, and he's chayev when he eats nevela. Reish Lakish Amar, no. We're not going to talk about a case where he was kolel dvarma mutar dvarma suru. Yatomotze ella b'mefarish chatzi shir. Again, we're going to get into complications here because of machlokas the Chacham and Rabbi Akiva. But leave out that machlokas first. I just want to get the general agenda here. The Gemara is saying that in this case, he took a shvua not to eat chatzi shir of the veil. If his shvua is chal on a chatzi shir, there's no mushba b'yomim b'arsina. Because Reish Lakish holds that chatzi shir mutter. The Gemara is going to make a leap of faith that if chatzi shir is mutter, according to the statement of Reish Lakish, it means it's mutter l'chatchila without any isa d'rabbanan. Now, Reish Lakish has to qualify a little bit because when a person takes a shvur that he won't eat, does it mean he won't eat a kazayas, or does it mean he won't eat at all? And that's going to be a machlokas between the Rabbanan and Rabbi Akiva. First, I'll leave it to Rabbi Akiva. We're talking about a mefarech chatzi shir. I'll leave it to Rabbanan. What did I say? The Rabbanan are of the opinion that when a person takes a shvur shelo yochal, he means I won't eat a kazayas. His definition of achila in his mind, that he accepted upon himself in an oath, is equal to the Torah's definition of achila. And he accepts the Torah's definition. He operates within that frame of reference, and therefore the Torah's definition of achila means it's got to be a kazayas. But if he's mefarech and he says I won't eat a chatzi zayis, then the shvur could be chal. Even according to Chacham, who say that shvur shelo yochal means I won't eat a kazayas, but if he's mefarech and he explicitly enunciates and he specifies that he won't eat any amount of nevela, even a chatzi zayis of nevela, that shvur will be chal, and if he violates the shvur, he'll be chayav, because there's no mushba v'yomim arsina on a chatzi shir. Or according to Rabbi Akiva holds that when a person takes a shvur, it means he takes a shvur when a person takes a shvur shelo yochal, it means I won't eat at all. He's not bound, or he's not trying to imitate the Torah's definition of achila, which requires a kazayit. So when a person says a shvur stam lo yochal, it means he won't eat at all. Bestam. On the top of that, find Valiba to Rabbi Akiva. The Omar Adam Oser Atzmo B'Kolshu. When a person says I won't eat, it means I won't eat at all, not even a morsel. And there's no mushba b'yomim Sinai on the vela, because Reish Lakish is of the opinion that chatzi shir mutar min Torah. So when he took the shvur on a chatzi shir, and again any shvur stam according to Rabbi Akiva is chatzi shir, that shvur is chal. There's no mushba b'yomim on a chatzi shir. However, according to the Rabbanan of Rabbi Akiva, when a person takes a shvur, it means I won't eat a shir. Here, in our Mishnah in Shvuos, we're talking about a case where he took a shvur shelo yochal chatzi shir. He specified and he included explicitly chatzi shir. and there's no mushba b'yomim b'arsina and a chatzi shir. That's the opinion of Reish Lakish. So the Gemara says, but Chitema, Havan the Islay Hetem in a Torah, B'chayil Korban Shvur. We want to prove from this Mishnah, as Reish Lakish interprets it, that according to Reish Lakish, there's no Isa D'Rabbanan in the Chatzi Shir. It's Mutal Lechatchila. And that's why there's no Mushba B'yomim Arsina. The Gemara, up until the Chitema, is arguing that if Reish Lakish would agree that Chatzi Shir is also on Kol Panim B'Rabbanan, then he's Mushba B'yomim on a Chatzi Shir. Why would he be Mushba B'yomim on Chatzi Shir? The answer is because the Torah commands us Lo Tasur Mikol Asher Yerucha, and the Torah says that the Chachamim are authorized to extend the Isurim of the Torah or to create new prohibitions. And once the Chachamim do so, then if a person violates that D'Rabbanan, he has violated a Doraisa of Lo Tasur. And the Gemara now is of the opinion that every D'Rabbanan can be classified as Mushba B'yomim Sinai. Why? Because of Lo Tasur. Unbelievable. But the Gemara says, wait a minute. Who says you're right? We're not going to apply the principle of Mushba B'yomim Sinai if it's Mutam in Torah. Now the Gemara is putting this whole svar of Lo Tasur on the side, ignoring it. We have to figure out why. But Tanan, and now we go on to another mission, which is a mission in Shavuos HaEivos. But Od Chazon L'Moed, we have time till we get to that. I want to read to you, and by the way, as I say over and over again, if you can get a hold of the Masifta, or if you show up here and Steve is kind enough to photocopy it for you, in the back of the Masifta, there's something called the Yalkut Bi'urim. I use it extensively, and I think you'd benefit a great deal if you had it in front of you. Yalkut Bi'urim in the back of the Masifta. And if you can't afford it, I'll raise the funds for you. Just kidding. Yalkut Bi'urim. You'll never regret that you bought it. I'm telling you, it's an Otzar Bolam. It's just a treasury house. He quotes a Mishnah in Masechet Shavuos that quotes Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira. He holds Nishbal L'Kayim HaMitzvah Chayim. If I take a shvua that I will take this lulav on Sukkos, the shvua is chal. It's a valid shvua. And Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira derives this from a kalachom. He says, if you have a davar she'eno mushba b'yom olav, then the shvua is chal. How much more so is your shvua valid if you're mushba b'yom? And this seems to be antithetical to our whole sugya. Our whole sugya is objecting to Reish Lakish because of the principle of Mushba B'yom Yarsina. It seems like Yehuda ben Beseira never even accepted that principle. So why couldn't the Gemara just simply defend Reish Lakish by invoking the Shita of Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira? The Tosas raises this question not here, but in Masechet Shavuos, and he writes, "Afil Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira disfilei b'mitzvos chala shvua moder b'nevelos she osur belav ein shvua chala." Interesting. You know, we very often ask ourselves, what's the difference between a mitzvah saseh and a mitzvah lo saseh? In Masechet Yoma, so with me, we have a principle called Essay Dochalosas. We're always trying to feel it out. There's essay, there's losasa. We call it positive and negative. Here's a major difference between the two. Mushba v'yomi mar Sinai, which undermines and invalidates a shvuah, when you take a shvuah on something that you already have pledged at our Sinai, then your shvuah can't be chal. That's only with regard to a lotas. We're going to apply the principle of mushba v'yomi mar Sinai to a lotas, but not to an essay. And the difference is that according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, therefore, if you take a shvuah on an essay, the shvuah is chal, because there's no mushba v'yomi mar Sinai on an essay. Now, Tosfos gives us a clue as to what's the difference between an essay and a lotasa. Why is it that in a lotasa you apply the principle of mushba v'yomi, but not in an essay? The Tosfos says this whole sugya of mushba v'yomi is predicated on another principle, which is called ein iser chalal iser. And if you think that there's a parallel in essay, that ein essay chalal essay, you're making a mistake. It's not so. You can have one essay and another essay. You can have many, many different reasons why you're mandated and obligated to fulfill a certain maisa, because it comes under an overlap of many different essays. We have it very often in Zmanim. You can have something that's, it's Shabbos, it's Rosh Chodesh, it's Yontif, I don't know, it's everything together. So you have many mitzvahs. But in Losa says we have a principle called Ein Iser Chalal Iser. You can't dump another Iser on top of another Iser. And that's what Mushba V'Yomi mar Sinai is all about. I was Mushba V'Yomi mar Sinai on the Iser Nevel. I can't add another Iser Nevel through a Shvuah because Ein Iser Chalal Iser. But Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira insists that in the case of an essay, if I want to take a shvuah on an essay, the shvuah will be valid. So we're talking now about Nevela's treif shkatz and vermosim. He took a shvuah and then he ate Nevela. Here we're going to say ein iser chalal iser, unless we apply the principle of chatzi shir. But again, chatzi shir only according to Reish Lakish. Rabbi Yochanan is going to have to come up with another answer to this question. Why are you chayav for the shvuah? The answer is because he took a kolel. He said, I won't eat nevela, but I won't eat any meat, whether it's shchuta or nevela. And then we have a principle that we suspend ein iser chal iser if the second iser is kolel. It has a broader scope, a broader application than the original iser. And all this I derive from 5 lines here on a very long page. Now, although Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira Lishitaso holds that in Esim we will validate the Shvuah on an essay, the Chacham reject it. And the Chachamim are of the opinion that you're not chayav for a shvuah on an essay if you're already mushba v'yomed on an essay. And the reason for this is described, analyzing the Gemara Shavuos. Again, there are principles here in Hilchot Shavuos that we're not holding it. And one of those principles is called lav vehem, which means the following: that in order for a shvuah to be valid, I have to be, to the same extent that I take a shvuah that I will eat something, I can take the shvuah that I won't eat something. That's lav vehem. But the Chacham say, in a case of a mitzvah, when you take a shvuah that you'll eat the matzah, you couldn't have taken a shvuah that you won't eat the matzah. and therefore it's lesser b'lavahem. Now this depends upon another principle, which is called ein nishboim levatel as a mitzvah. So if he takes a shvur that he won't eat matzah on the night of Pesach, that's a shvur levatel as a mitzvah, and that shvur cannot be chal. Therefore, if he takes a shvur that he will eat matzah on Leil Pesach, according to Chacham, that shvur is not chal because it's less of a lavahen. Now it's interesting because Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira agrees that ein nishpoim levatel as a mitzvah. What's the difference between a shvur lekayim as a mitzvah, which according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira is a valid shvur, and it will be held responsible for that shvur, and a shvur levatel as a mitzvah, which is not chal at all. And apparently, and this again has repercussions throughout all of halacha, Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira understands that levatel as a mitzvah is like an Isa. The Torah gave you a mitzvah. The flip side is don't non-fulfill the mitzvah. It's a double negative. So shvur levatel as a mitzvah is, even according to Rabbi Yehuda ben Beseira, is not a valid shvur because mushba b'yomei shelo levatel as a mitzvah. All right. Now here he quotes a Noda Yehuda. The Noda Yehuda says the following: why does the Gemara invoke the principle of mushba b'yomei marasina? Leave out mushba b'yomei. We have a principle of any suchal alisa. If the Gemara wants to point out that l'chora this shvur cannot be chal when he takes a shvur that he won't eat nevela, that's because of any suchal alisa. Why does the Gemara feel compelled to invoke the principle of mushba b'yomei marasina? Says the name of Noda Yehuda, be'emes shvur yechola lochel al isurim. A shvur can be chal on these. What do you mean? We have a principle of any suchal alisa. He says, "Rak she'en hashvur yechol lachul al shvur acheres." Now here we have to be brisker. We have no choice. But everyone's a brisker in this context. The Gemara tells us at the beginning of Nidarim that a neder is an isa chefta and shvur is an isa gavra. You know, the Yehuda is saying that if I take a shvur on nevelos utrefus, then we would not apply the principle in isa chalisa because the shvur is on the gavra and nevela is an isa on the chefta. You are adding a new isa in nevela, which is called an isa gavra, by virtue of the shvur. The only problem with a shvur of shelo yochal nevela is the problem of mushba b'yomei marasina. He says, "Be'emes shvur yechola lachol al isurim." Notice we're not going to apply the principle of an isur chal isur and a shvur on an isur. He doesn't tell you why, but I think we understand why. A shvur could be chal as an isur gavra on nevela, but not on another shvur. Nevela is not just an isur hefta. Nevela is also an isur gavra because we were mushba b'yomei marasina. So nevela has on it a shvur. And to add a shvur that you won't eat nevela is ein shvur chal shvur because you already have an isur gavra. I mean, that's the way I would formulate this Noda Yehuda. I mean, he doesn't have that lingo. Comes along the Avnei Miluim, that's the Ktosach Koshin, and he says, no. Ain't Isa Chal Isa. You can't take a shvua on an Isa. And he says the following: Ein Isur Chal Isur is not the same as Ein Shvua Chal Al Shvua. In Isur, even if he doesn't get punished for the second Isur, nevertheless the second Isur is Kayam. Here's the following example. He's got a piece of nevela. Let's say, okay, this is going to be a lot of fun. Very profound. Anything that so says is profound. He says the following. In a case of Ein Isur Chal Isur, the second Isur is Chai V'Kayim. Again, we can't punish him, the second set of Malchus, for the second Isur. That's called Ein Isur Chal Isur in Onshin. But as far as Isurim is concerned, the second Isur can be Chal. Not so in the case of a Shvua. He takes a Shvua on a Shvua, then the second Shvua has no Achiza at all. It doesn't even get off the ground. He's already mushba on that Shvua. And the Shvua itself engenders and enjoins him from whatever it is that he took the Shvua on, and you can't add another Shvua. But in Isur, you can add another Isur. And he gives the following example. An animal died on Yom Kippur. That makes it nevela if it didn't have shkita. He says, "B'varei sheyesh kan nevela, el she'eno nenash mitam nevela." I would disagree with him, but who am I to disagree with the Ketzos? But he says, if an animal died on Yom Kippur, then the Isur nevela is not chal, meaning that it is nevela. You're not allowed to eat it, but you wouldn't be punished for nevela, because it's already awesome. B'Toras Yom Kippur. I would have said just the opposite. Yom Kippur is an Isur Gavra. Nevela is an Isur Chefza, and therefore it could be Chal. But anyway, he's learning that this would be a case in which the second Isur would certainly be Chal, but you're not punished for it. But in the case of Shvua, the second Shvua is not Chal at all. Doesn't get off the ground. Nafkamina, do we need a Taras Nidarin for a chola to eat nevela? If you're going to tell me that the Shvua of Har Sinai is chal on this nevela, then there are two reasons and two isurim. Why is he enjoined from eating this nevela? And one is mushba v'yomim Har Sinai. So if a person has to eat nevela and he's got to minimize his isurim, then he should be matir the shvur. The answer is there is no shvur. What do you mean he took a shvur on the nevela? He's already mushba v'yomed on the nevela. So if he takes a shvur, the second shvur has no tfisa at all. So his shvur doesn't require a toast to Doran because it's not even a valid shvur. He has a fascinating hakira nafkamina. What happens if a man takes a shvur on an Isur nevela, and then that Isur is removed? In other words, are we saying that the Isur that prevented the shvur from being chal is a temporary situation? In any Isur chal Isur, the halacha is that the second Isur will not chal on the first Isur as long as the first Isur is in existence. But tomorrow, when that Isur falls off on the 11th of Tishrei, then the other Isur will be chal. It's sort of suspended in midair as long as the first Isur is chal. What would be in Shvuah if he took a Shvuah on an Isur? Says the K'tzos. The Shvuah is not floating in midair. The Shvuah is worthless. And even if tomorrow you remove that Isur, the Shvuah is not binding. It was nipped in the bud from the get-go. This is the brilliant chiddush of the Avnei Miluim. The Isurim Amrina Mitla Toli V'Koi. The second Isur is suspended. It's like floating in the airspace. Ukshetimtza Makom Lachlu. It's like a bird that, like the Yona that's looking to find some dry land. And so as soon as we move the first Isur, the second Isur Bichal. Avo b'shvua ein hashvua chala klal. It doesn't get off the ground. It's not that the shvua is somewhere suspended, making circles in the air, like the airplane that's waiting to land. No, it's not a shvua at all. And even if the original Isur would be removed, the shvua is not binding. Therefore, the Avnei Miluim says, why didn't the Gemara ask the kasha from Ein Isur Chal Isur? Right, we had one answer of the Nod Yehuda, but the Avnei Miluim cannot accept that answer. He says, "Mishum to be surim in boa love b'vas achas chalim shneim." By yochel taris the mayri b'nishva v'achakach nisnavla sheshnei ha'isurim boim kiechad. Second, what do you mean? What does he mean? Shnei ha'isurim boim kiechad. Masha'enki b'shvua, afilu nishma v'yachach nisnavla, shebo alav shneim v'asach sof sof ein yochel lios mushpa shnei piyomim ela pamach. He has a halacha that even though Ein Isur Chal Isur in general, but if you have two Isurim that are Chal simultaneously, they're both Chal. And therefore, the Gemara L'chora could have given an answer that the reason why the Chachamim in the Mishnah and Shvuah say Yechai for the Shvuah is because it was a case where both the Shvuah and the Isur were Chal b'vas achas. Why? Because he first took the Shvuah, and then the animal died without shkita. The very second, the very moment the animal dies without shkita, the Isur Neveli emerges, and he's already got an Isur of Shvuah. So in that case, the Chachamim would say Yechayah. Masha'enki b'Shvuah, he says if you have a Shvuah on top of a Shvuah, and in this case Mushba v'Yom v'Arsina and Nevela, then even if both Shvuos are Chal b'Masachas, only one of them is binding. I'm not sure which. He says, "Afilu nishma v'yachach nisnavla shebolov shnei ha'isurim v'masachas sof sof eni yochel lios mushba v'yomeid shtei pe'om elapamachas." Okay, then. So this is where we'll start. On the bottom right column of page Nun Zayin. Do you have page Nun Zayin? Oh. I think I have a copy here if you want to make yourself take a look if you see it. It's a little, I don't know, the ink didn't come out so strong, but it's there. Yeah. Okay then? All right. Have a great day.
I will not be seeing you for a while. I'm going back to New York tomorrow morning. So
have a great trip, and if you get if by chance if you get to the Zimbergs, I don't know.
I plan on paying a sugar call. Yes.
So do me a favor. I was able to be at the beginning, but the funeral was delayed by 45 minutes, and then I had a conflict. So I only caught like the Tehillim at the beginning and the first Hesped, but I was there. So maybe you could convey that to them.
I'll mention that you said yes.
Yeah, we're very close to the Zimbabwe. Okay, all the best. Have a safe trip.
Thank you. Okay. Hope to see you soon. Take care.